Well, it looks like we broke national headlines here. Why isn't the NDP triggering an election? Well, they can't afford one. Now, of course, this is a story that Amazing Zoltan broke and he's been talking about. And well, I have him here today to talk about this. Welcome to the show, Amazing Zoltan. Alex, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Clyde.
Absolutely.
Happy relaxation day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure everybody's over in Tofino celebrating for the most part. Anyway, getting onto this story, Jagmeet Singh expenses $143,000 in his last financial quarter to his constituency office. That's just in 3 months he gave it to his office. However, the office is locked and the lights are off, and a note on the door with the phone number, but no one answers the phone, and voicemails are not returned. How is this? How is all their money being spent? This is you at their office.
So exactly as I suspected, regular office hours have changed. Technically, this should be open, but no one is here. The lights are not on. The door is not open. So the door is quite dirty. And no one seems to be around.
The door is quite dirty and no one seems to be around. So that's your experience of actually going to the office of Jagmeet Singh. And now this has become a national story. The National Post is writing about it, and they're even citing you in the article.
Yeah, so Clyde, if you pull up that first article that I sent you, I actually don't find this particularly surprising that this would happen in a place like Vancouver.
Okay.
So there was an old thing back in the day before you could trade stocks on your phone instantaneously with, the advantages of modern electronics. In the 1980s and 90s, there were trading floors where people would work with punch cards and paper ledger systems. And so there was trading floors all around the continent of North America. There were some in Vancouver, some in Toronto, some in Chicago. Vancouver was considered the Vancouver Stock Exchange, which was called at that time. The trading floor there was considered the scam capital of the world. And this was a place where people would trade penny stocks. They would engage in what they call boiler room scams. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that phrase, Clyde. Do you know?
No, I know penny stocks, the whole like pump and dump thing. You get a bunch of people to buy a cheap stock and then you get them to raise the price. You get out and then they're left holding the bag kind of thing.
Yeah, so Vancouver was very much a front runner in that whole thing with the Vancouver Stock Exchange. So there's a lot of speculative mining exploration companies. And so they would engage in what they call boiler room scams, where they would call people and they'd say, yeah, I'm in the 13th floor of the Empire State Building in New York right now, looking down on all the people. And, I have a really great stock to sell you. And it was completely fake. And so Vancouver has long been considered a epicenter of fraud, money laundering, scams. And so I don't think it's any coincidence that Jagmeet Singh's riding that they chose for him. They hand selected it because, as you may recall, he was originally from Ontario. He was from the Windsor region, which is where you're from.
That's where I'm from. Yeah.
He couldn't get elected.
There's a lot of scams there when it comes to unions as well in that region.
Sure. But I mean, this would never fly in Windsor.
Right.
People in Ontario are too smart for this. So they moved. It's the truth. So they moved him to this area, and his constituency office is only a few miles away from where the old Vancouver Stock Exchange building used to be. And so I don't think it's any coincidence. This falls within a pattern and a history of Vancouver having a very laissez-faire attitude when it comes to scams, frauds, etc.
Wow. Okay, so in this article, though, we have more coming out. Why the NDP triggered an election, why they can't afford one. The party's so broke, they'd struggle just to cover the travel expenses of the leader. So they're actually putting forward, basically starting with the information that you dug up. You found this information, you put it forward, and you got that ball in motion, and it just started rolling, and it started snowballing out of control. Saying that in particular, they counted less than $300,000 in cash in the most recent audited financial statements. At the close of 2023, the party had cash assets of just $298,000. Then they go into how much interest they're paying on these loans, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Other people like David Coletto adding to this, saying after a life of PhD studies, I spent most of my time combining or combing over party financial statements and Elections Canada data. I wanted to understand the dynamics of Canada politics today and the likelihood of an election, and looking at the balance sheets of the different parties. Basically, this is what he's come to the conclusion. They're not going to get into it because of their financial instability, and they're the guys holding the keys to the castle here. They're the only ones saying whether we're going to go into an election or not, and they obviously gave you credit here, saying writer Alex Zoltan also took note of the bare cupboards of the NDP in a widely circulated X.com thread. Zoltan attributed it back to the party funding a massive advertisement blitz in 2021 election that yielded virtually no gains. It was a giant financial risk, and it failed to pay off. And now here they're paying for it. We're all paying for it, as you wrote in that article. This is crazy. It's national headlines now.
Yeah, and so going back to the Vancouver Stock Exchange for a second, one of the ways that you could investigate one of these boiler room schemes, as they called them, is you could go to the office. Because a lot of places, they would just claim an office as their headquarters, and they would say, yeah, we're a very successful company, like, and we have this office in Manhattan or whatever. You could just go there. You just knock on the door, and you could figure out if it was real or not. So that's what I did. I looked at their financial statements. I said that I don't think they have enough money to keep the lights on and to keep the office operating. And then I went to Jagmeet Singh's constituency office, and sure enough, no lights.
Well, then the question goes, because you say in your post here, $143,000 per quarter, just in the last quarter alone, went to this office. How much money does it cost to keep one person in there and the lights on?
But there isn't even one person. So their operating hours, you can look it up on Google Maps right now, is 14 hours a week. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 5 p.m. with a lunch break. So I went there, and there's no one there. There is no one there. There's a note on the door where it says we will only do appointments by phone. So you call the phone number. I left several messages. Nobody ever got back to me. In fact, Clyde, I do recommend call them right now.
I'll call them at some point. No. During this.
They do not even acknowledge in the voicemail greeting that this is Jagmeet Singh's riding. They don't even acknowledge that they're part of the NDP party. They just say, thank you for calling South Burnaby, which is not even technically the name of the riding anymore. It's actually Central Burnaby. It's been gerrymandered. But
they changed.
Yeah, but you would have no idea that this is Jagmeet Singh. I highly encourage.
So $143,000 in the past 3 months was not even enough for them to change the message on their voicemail.
Not even enough for them to answer the voicemail, to respond to any of the calls. Nothing. And then some people said to me, "Well, like it's only appointment by phone." Okay, fair enough. 14 hours a week. So I called. Nobody answered. Clyde, what do the opening hours mean?
Well, it means nothing if they don't open.
Right. Is this some kind of bizarro NDP bizarro world where if I call outside of the opening hours, they will answer, where open means closed, closed means open, up means down, down means up? I mean, what is this?
So the question that everybody's asking then, well, what does this mean for the voting public? Because right now the NDP, I mean, this has been for a while, the NDP has been holding Canada hostage by propping up Justin Trudeau. Now, they said they tore up their agreement. They tore up the confidence agreement. They're still voting with them, especially in matters of confidence. We saw that just last week. We're going to see it again and again, because the Conservatives are poised to bring up many more votes of no confidence. And then they're sharing this confidence scheme with the Bloc Québécois now. So the average Canadian is going, okay, well, is there any political will for Jagmeet to even vote for no confidence, even in any future ones, if there's no chance in hell that they'll ever be able to fund an election?
Well, they can take out another loan, and they will. No, I mean, all the parties will. We know this is how the system works. This is a very weird intermediary step. All the parties take out loans. They've just about paid off the last loan from the last election. But what's interesting about the NDP is that they collateralize their loans. They're so risky now for the banks that they have to collateralize their loans through various functions. The last episode we talked about the assignment of rents on the Jack Layton building in Ottawa. What they also do is they collateralize their loans based off of Elections Canada rebates. So the amount of money that's spent by these constituency offices is generally given a very lucrative rebate from the government of Canada. That rebate is prorated based off of how many votes they receive. So it is theoretically very unlikely, but it is theoretically possible that if the NDP received less than 5%, or in some cases 2% of the popular vote, they could actually go bankrupt.
That's unbelievable. Less than 2% of the vote. Well, because then they won't be eligible for any of these loans. Currently, the party. The article goes on to say that the party was so financially unprepared for the snap 2021 election that it had to take out $20 million in loans that it has now only come to close to pay off. At the party's national conference in February, party officials said that they only had $2 million left of outstanding on that loan. But in the meantime, debt servicing charges have repeatedly ranked as one of the party's largest single expenses aside from salaries. Of course, Jagmeet takes a huge salary himself. The article talks about that. But in 2022, the NDP spent $882,000 on bank charges of interest, and more than 10 times what they spent on advertising for the year, which was only $83,000, close to $84,000. Bank charges and interest topped out at $558,000, roughly on par with what the party spent for on travel expenses, just around the same amount of money, which is it's absolutely absurd. It's insane.
Absurd. It's completely absurd. So typically, again, all parties take out loans in order to fund elections. It's just this weird thing that we do in Canada, but it's widely accepted according to the Elections Canada's rules that you would have that paid off in 36 months. The NDP is cutting it. They're towing the line. They're barely making their deadlines. They're insolvent, essentially.
That's insane. And because of their insolvency, because of their terrible track record with their own finances, which the irony is they're running for government and wanting to run all of our finances. But because of that, we're being held hostage by their bad bookkeeping. We won't be going into
to deal with the gaslighting. This group of people that cannot run an office the size of an H&R Block for 14 hours a week is claiming that they are going to push through the most successful and revolutionary school lunch program in human history.
I mean, yeah, no, it's not lost on me. That's absolutely for sure. But this is just crazy. That's actually the case in a major political party in Canada. This isn't some fringe party. This is the well, I guess is it the third or fourth biggest in Canada?
I believe it would be the third. I'm hoping that we can get them to no party status, because if this is kind of my outlook from this story, is just anyone but NDP. Let's just get rid of this party, because it's outrageous that a party that is receiving so much money from the public sector unions as well, that's an enormous cash cow, could have financials this poor. It's unbelievable. Think about how much money teachers, nurses, people working in the public sector, tax collectors, just all kinds of people are contributing to this party for them to have less money than the average 65-year-old retiree in Canada is outrageous. This party has no justification for existence.
Well, I guess the pontification here, if I was to speculate and ask you this, well, if the NDP didn't exist, well, wouldn't they be there not to split the left vote? And wouldn't that ensure that more people would vote Liberal?
Vote Green. Just vote Green. You're already throwing away your vote. You might as well just throw it away extra hard.
Oh, boy. Well, yeah. Well, a lot of people would say that in the last election, throwing your vote away at the NDP was throwing your vote towards the Liberals, because that's exactly how it went. And that's how Jagmeet Singh incidentally got the nickname Sellout Singh. I know that a lot of people are trying to say that it was some racist thing. It was actually invented by Sikhs in his constituency. They called him a sellout because they wanted him to be separate from the Liberals. Anyway, Zoltan, I want to thank you for joining me today. Congratulations on making national headlines on this story. And of course, we'll have you back again.
Thanks to Tristan Hopper as well for
big time.
That's super cool of him, as well as the fellow from Abacus. So appreciate both of them.
Absolutely. All right. Links in the description down below, as always. We'll see you all in the next one. Keep on trucking.